It was just a normal weekday afternoon, one of those uneventful Thursdays where everything feels mechanical. Work was steady but uninspiring, just a string of virtual meetings that could have been emails, and I was already looking forward to clocking out early. Olivia had texted me earlier in the day asking if I could swing by and pick up a tailored outfit she needed for an upcoming presentation. Said it would be faster if I handled it since the shop was closer to my office. No big deal. I agreed without hesitation. Her car was downstairs in our garage. She'd taken mine that morning since it had more gas. That wasn't out of the ordinary. We traded vehicles all the time depending on who had the longer commute. At least it used to feel normal. I grabbed her keys from the bowl by the door and headed down to the garage. From the elevator to the parking spot, it was just the usual hum of fluorescent lights and the low echo of tires screeching somewhere in the concrete maze. But as soon as I got into the driver's seat, something felt off. It wasn't obvious at first. Just one of those weird internal hesitations where your body reacts before your brain catches up. I noticed right away that the passenger seat was reclined all the way back, like awkwardly far, almost horizontal. At first, I figured she had maybe taken a nap between meetings or something, but that didn't track. Olivia doesn't nap in her car. If anything, she's the type to overcaffeinate and power through the day on sheer will. And besides, the seat wasn't set to her height or mine. It was adjusted for someone taller. Longer legs, for sure. It wasn't just back. It was stretched out, like someone had been fully lounging. I reached over to bring it back up, and as I was adjusting the incline, I noticed something stuffed in the side door pocket. I figured it was just a parking receipt or one of those fast food napkins she never throws away, but when I pulled it out, my chest tightened. It was a small white envelope, crisp, clean, like something you'd be handed at a front desk. On the front was a logo I didn't recognize at first, a minimalist wave design next to the words Mariner Quay Lofts. I blinked, not ringing any bells. I opened the envelope slowly, not entirely sure why my hands were suddenly clammy. Inside was a plastic keycard, the kind with a magnetic strip and a square NFC chip, probably for elevator access. Tucked behind the card was a printed receipt. It read, Day Use Reservation Private Loft Suite, 2 guests. Date. Today's date. Time. Check-in 12:41 p.m. Check-out 4:52 p.m. Guest initials O.H. I just sat there for a second, staring at the slip of paper in my hand. My first instinct wasn't rage. It wasn't even suspicion, not fully. It was confusion. A sinking feeling in the gut, like when you drop something fragile in the dark and hear it break before you see the damage. This could mean anything, I told myself. Work-related? Maybe she was scouting for an off-site? Maybe her team was filming something? Olivia worked in creative consulting. Her job sometimes involved strange venues, pop-up locations, studio spaces. But a private loft suite? I checked the timestamp again. 12:41 p.m. to 4:52 p.m. Nearly 5 hours, right in the middle of the day. Not a meeting, not a shoot, not a brainstorm session. Private suite. For 2. Still, I wasn't jumping to conclusions. At least, I told myself I wasn't. I folded the receipt and slid it back into the envelope. But my hands were trembling slightly, just enough to notice. As I reached for the ignition, I thought maybe I was overreacting. I was halfway through convincing myself that it could all be explained when I realized I needed a napkin. There's usually a stash in the glove compartment, so I popped it open. That's when I saw it. A small brass token, about the size of a $50, tucked beneath a few old gum wrappers. It had an engraving on one side, Valet MQ Lofts. On the other, etched by hand in black permanent marker, 412. A room number. Now my heart wasn't just fluttering. It was pounding. The kind of beat you feel in your throat. I picked up the token, turning it over in my fingers. It was smooth, cold, recently handled. That feeling I'd ignored when I first got in the car. That something was off. Suddenly locked into place. I sat back in the seat and exhaled hard. The kind of exhale that feels like you're trying to blow away a tornado. And then the questions came rushing in. Why would she need a room in the middle of the day? Who was she with? What excuse was I given today? A working lunch? A briefing call with regional leads? Had I even checked her calendar? I looked down at the envelope again. The initials were hers, O.H. No question. I stared at that plastic keycard like it could talk. I didn't even notice that I had started rubbing my wedding band with my thumb, like it was a worry stone. It's something I do when I'm anxious, usually when I'm flying, or when Olivia's upset about something and I'm trying to ground myself. I considered, for a full minute, whether to just pretend I hadn't seen anything, to leave the envelope where I found it, to go pick up the outfit like nothing happened, to not open this particular door. But once a thought plants itself like that, it doesn't go away. You can try to ignore it, but it grows in the dark, fast. So I picked up the keycard and receipt, placed them carefully back into the envelope, and slid it into the inside pocket of my jacket. I went to the tailor, picked up her dress, drove home. I didn't say anything. Not yet. That evening, I walked into our apartment like I always did, keys in the tray, shoes by the door, jacket over the chair. And Olivia was there, greeting me with a smile, glass of wine in hand. "Hey babe, long day?" she asked sweetly. It was different, not just cheerful but intentional. There was music playing low in the background, a candle burning that she usually saves for special occasions. She even had dinner already in the oven, salmon and roasted vegetables. Her go-to comfort meal when she's in a particularly good mood, or when she wants something from me. "Yeah," I said casually. "Busy. You?" "Oh, the usual," she said, waving a hand. "Meetings, deadlines, chaos. You know how it is." She walked over and kissed me. Light, but longer than normal. Her hand lingered on my shoulder a beat too long. Then she pivoted. "You seem tired lately," she said, guiding me toward the couch. "Stressed. Is everything okay at work?" I paused. "Yeah, just same old stuff." She leaned in. "You've seemed kind of distant. I've been trying not to take it personally, but it's hard." There it was. Subtle, calculated, wrapped in concern but heavy with misdirection. She wasn't just expressing worry. She was preemptively reframing whatever I might be thinking. "You know," she added, "I've been trying to create more space for us. I even carved out a few hours this afternoon just to get some clarity. Some peace." She smiled again, soft, understanding. But her eyes flicked downward, just for a second. And it hit me. She was already rewriting the story, turning potential accusations into coincidences, reframing her absence as self-care, blurring the lines between distance and my supposed inattentiveness. She was good, really good. I nodded slowly and let her keep talking. I let her serve dinner. I let her pour wine. I let her lean into me while we watched some mindless sitcom. But I couldn't unsee that envelope. I couldn't unknow what I'd found. Something had shifted. And no matter how warm she made the room feel, I was suddenly very aware of the cold space growing between us. And I wasn't going to ignore it. Not this time. After that night, I started paying attention. Not in the paranoid tinfoil hat way I always used to roll my eyes at in other people's stories, but carefully, quietly, observantly. I wasn't looking to catch Olivia in a lie. Not yet. I was just watching. And once I started watching, I couldn't stop. It was like tuning into a frequency I hadn't noticed before. Suddenly, all these background signals, these barely there details that I'd overlooked for months, came into sharp focus. Everything that used to feel like small quirks or moments of distance started to align, like little puzzle pieces rearranging themselves into something darker, something deliberate. Started with her phone. She had always been a bit private with it. Not in a suspicious way, just guarded like a lot of people. But a few months ago, she'd turned off her read receipts. I didn't think much of it then. Said it was for work-life balance. That people kept getting passive-aggressive when she didn't reply fast enough. Fair. That made sense. But then came the passcode change. Out of nowhere. No heads up. No, hey, I changed it to something more secure. Just one day, I noticed I couldn't unlock her phone to check a delivery confirmation she asked me to look up. She laughed it off, said it was part of their new company policy. Something about client confidentiality. Said she'd give me the new code later. She never did. I didn't push. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who makes everything a trust issue. But that was the moment a seed got planted. And it didn't help that every time a notification came in, she'd either mute it or tilt the phone screen away. The phone was always face down now, always on silent. Even the vibration was turned off. I told myself maybe it was burnout. Maybe she was just stressed. But that theory wore thin when the gym routine started. Out of nowhere, Olivia got hyper-focused on fitness. Not in a bad way, she looked incredible and I told her so. But she got a new trainer. One she constantly talked about but never named. Just my trainer. Suddenly, she was working out for sometimes 5 times a week. Always evening sessions. Always alone. Every time I offered to go with her, she dodged the idea. "We need our own time apart," she said once, lightly. "It's important." I agreed at first. Space in a relationship is healthy. But it wasn't just space. It became segmentation. She created little pockets of her life that were completely closed off to me. Untraceable, private, sealed up tight. I never saw the gym receipts. Never saw the trainer. Never met a single one of her supposed fitness friends. It was like a part of her routine existed in a separate universe. And then there were the cash withdrawals. We've always been digital, almost entirely cashless. We track everything through a budgeting app we both check weekly. We're not uptight about money, but we like transparency. That's why I noticed it immediately. Small withdrawals at first. $40 here, $60 there. Then it became more frequent. $100, $120. Once even $300 in a single week. All marked ATM local number 43. Always the same machine. A random corner bodega she's never mentioned. When I asked her about it, she just shrugged. Said she needed to pay for group lunches or tipped someone at the gym or covered something for a coworker. I believed her the first couple of times. After that, not really. Another thing, her routes became predictable. In a weird way, Olivia used to be spontaneous. Take different roads home, swing by new coffee shops, change up her evening walks. But lately, her routes were rigid, mechanical, like she was running a script. Same roads, same parking garages, same gym, same cafe. No detours, no variation. Sounds harmless, I know. But it's not what she was doing, it's why. The predictability wasn't about routine. It was about control. Every step she took seemed calculated to avoid running into anyone, especially me. I tried testing it once. I said I'd be working late, then left early and drove past the gym to surprise her. She wasn't there. Her car wasn't either. 10 minutes later, I got a text from her. "Hey babe, just wrapping up at the gym. Want me to pick up dinner?" I said no. I didn't confront her. I just sat there in the parking lot for another 20 minutes, watching shadows move behind the fogged-up gym windows, wondering who she was really texting and where she actually was. It was around then that I started keeping track of the passenger seat in her car. I know how stupid that sounds, but I couldn't ignore it anymore. Every time I got into her SUV, and every time, the seat was pushed back. Way back. Reclined. I fix it. The next day it would be the same. Once? Fine. Twice? A fluke. But 6 times in a row? That's someone else riding sh*TG*N. Someone taller than either of us. And then there was the cologne. God. I still remember the first time I smelled it. It was faint but distinct. Sharp, musky. Definitely not anything I wear. I noticed it as soon as I leaned into the car to grab her work laptop from the back seat. At first, I thought maybe it was one of her coworkers. Maybe someone rode with her to a meeting or something. But it kept happening. Once I noticed it, I couldn't unnotice it. It lingered. In the seatbelt. In the upholstery. Not mine. Not hers. Someone else's. I brought it up once, jokingly. "Hey, who's wearing men's cologne in your car? Should I be worried?" I asked, smiling. She blinked, smiled back. "Oh, probably one of the guys from the gym. They sweat like animals. The whole place smells like Axe and testosterone." She laughed. I laughed with her. but I felt something cold in my chest. It wasn't just the answer, it was how ready it was. Like she'd rehearsed it. And then there were the mood swings. Sharp ones. Some days she was distant, detached, like I was a stranger in my own kitchen. Other days she was over-the-top affectionate. Back rubs, compliments, surprise coffees, little touches for no reason. At first, I thought maybe she was just trying harder, that we were reconnecting, but it didn't feel like love. It felt like guilt. It was like watching a pendulum swing, and I was stuck in the middle trying to decode which version of Olivia I was going to get next. The last thing that really got to me was the messages, or the lack of them. We used to have this thing, whenever we were apart, even just at work, we'd send memes, little messages, silly thoughts. It was our way of staying close. But lately, I'd go to our chat and find nothing. Days of silence. Or worse, full threads suddenly missing. Messages that had been there, I know they were there, now gone. I asked her once if she'd cleared our history accidentally. She looked up from her laptop, blinked once and said, "Huh? No, I didn't delete anything. That's weird." Then she went right back to typing like it didn't matter. But it mattered to me, because all of it, the gym stories, the hidden phone, the car seat, the cologne, the mood swings, the vanishing messages, all of it was telling a story she wasn't willing to say out loud. And I was starting to think I already knew how it ended. I didn't want to believe it. God, I did not want to believe it. This was Olivia. My wife. My partner. The person I trusted with everything. We built our life together. Built routines. Shared dreams. Made plans for a future that didn't look like this. But I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was happening. Something she wasn't telling me. Something I wasn't supposed to see. And the only way forward now was through. You don't start out wanting proof. You start out hoping you're wrong. That this is all just paranoia. That the receipts, the patterns, the reclined seat, the missing messages, all of it has some innocent explanation you're just too tired or too jaded to see clearly. You hope you're overthinking it, letting your imagination run wild because you're stressed or distant or not sleeping well. But eventually, hope becomes a liability. Eventually, you get tired of feeling like a guest in your own life. That's when I realized I wasn't looking for answers anymore. I was looking for evidence. I needed to know, not think, not wonder, not suspect. No. So I took a quiet step forward. The first thing I did was order a GPS tracker, one of those tiny, magnetized ones people use to find stolen bikes or monitor company vehicles. Completely legal. No wires, no drama. I didn't tell anyone, not even my best friend. I didn't write it down. I didn't leave a paper trail. I wasn't angry. I wasn't confrontational. I was just methodical. I hid the device on the inside edge of Olivia's gym bag, beneath the lining, where it couldn't be felt or seen. It linked to an app on my phone, password protected, no alerts unless I manually checked. I didn't want to obsess over it. I just wanted to see if her routine was real, if the gym nights were actually gym nights. At first, it looked harmless. Monday gym, Tuesday gym, Wednesday gym. But then Thursday came, and instead of pinging at her regular workout spot, the tracker showed a slow, steady route toward the harbor. Then it stopped. Mariner Quay Lofts. That same name from the keycard envelope I'd found in her car. That's when the cold certainty kicked in. The kind of certainty that doesn't come from intuition or guesswork. The kind that hurts. I stared at the location pin on my phone, watched it sit there for almost 3 hours, unmoving. She hadn't said anything about a meeting or a client or an offsite. She'd left in yoga pants and a cropped hoodie. Said she'd be home late because she was doing back-to-back sessions. Gonna die doing planks, she joked. 3 hours later, the dot moved again. Back to the gym. Then home. She even walked in flushed and sweaty. Poured herself a Gatorade. Said her trainer had K** led her legs. I nodded and asked how it went. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek and said, "You really should come next time." I nodded again. But inside I was somewhere else. The next day, I contacted a private investigator. His name was Logan Pierce. A former military guy turned civilian investigator, recommended by someone I trust. No drama, no bravado. Just quiet competence. When we met at a diner out on the edge of town, I handed him the basics, names, license plates, recent photos, and the specific windows of time I suspected. He didn't ask for more than he needed. He took notes with a ballpoint pen and said he'd start right away. "I'm not looking for theatrics," I told him. "You'll get what's real," he said. "Nothing more, nothing less." And that's exactly what I got. Less than a week later, Logan sent me a secure folder. Encrypted, password protected. The kind of thing you double-check the locks on before opening. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to sit down and look through everything. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them. The first few were distant, grainy, taken from across the street. Olivia walking into Mariner Quay lofts wearing a black hoodie, hair up in a loose bun. She paused outside near the valet stand. And then a man approached her. Tall, dark-haired, athletic build, dressed like someone who didn't need to try hard to look impressive. They hugged. Not a side hug. Not a polite greeting. A full, slow, deliberate pull-in. The kind that says, "I missed you." Then there were more images, them entering through the side entrance, one of those coded residential doors that required key access. Another photo showed them inside a glass elevator, their reflections leaning close. She was smiling. He was touching her lower back. Then there was the one that broke me. They were standing on a private terrace, evening light hitting them just right. She was leaning on the railing, him behind her, arms around her waist. Their heads were close together, foreheads nearly touching. The timestamp, 5:38 p.m., 1 hour after she had told me she was wiping down equipment at the gym. In the same folder, Logan included a bar tab, not itemized with food, just drinks and one highlighted line item. Private terrace rental room 412. Same room number as the valet token I'd found weeks earlier. I kept scrolling, numb now. More photos. Them exiting the building together after dark. Him unlocking his car, a black BMW. She paused at the driver's side door, kissed him. Not fast. Not guilty. Just natural. She looked happy. That's the part that caught me off guard. She didn't look guilty or anxious. She looked free, like she belonged somewhere else and had finally gotten back there. I sat there, staring at the screen, not breathing. It wasn't even the kiss that gutted me. It was how easy it looked for her. How normal. Like this had been going on long enough to feel safe. When I could finally move again, I saved the entire folder to 3 different places. An encrypted cloud drive, a USB drive I keep locked in a cabinet, and a backup hidden behind a password-protected app in my phone. I wasn't thinking revenge. I wasn't thinking confrontation. I was thinking protection. I was thinking confirmation. Now I had it. Cold, silent, high-definition confirmation. There was no more debate. No more speculation. She was cheating. Not maybe. Not emotionally. Not potentially. Not probably. Fact. She was cheating. She had created a second routine, a second version of herself. One that existed entirely outside of our marriage. Outside of me, and I hadn't been blind. I had been patient, careful, rational. I had waited for truth to reveal itself. And now it had. And somehow I wasn't screaming. I wasn't breaking things. I wasn't even crying. I was just sitting there, still, watching my life untangle on a screen. It didn't feel like betrayal, not in the dramatic sense. It felt like gravity. Like the ground had quietly shifted and I hadn't realized I was falling until I hit the bottom. And now that I was down there, it was quiet, eerily quiet. Later that night, Olivia walked in from yoga. She tossed her bag on the bench, greeted me like she always did, casual, light, even affectionate. I watched her face as she moved around the kitchen, pulling out leftovers, asking about my day. I answered, calm, measured. I didn't flinch. I didn't betray anything, because now I had the proof, and there would be a time for confrontation. But not yet. Now it was time to prepare. There's something terrifying about knowing the truth, not because of the truth itself, but because once you have it, you can't unknow it. The illusion is gone. The game is over. And yet, you still have to sit at the dinner table across from the person who's been lying to you. You still have to smile through the small talk. Kiss goodnight. Pretend to fall asleep next to her breathing body in the dark. It's surreal, like watching yourself play the part of husband in a play where everyone else already knows the twist ending. But that's what I did. I didn't say a word. Not yet. Instead, I shifted into a new role. Not the betrayed husband. Not the angry one. I became the quiet observer. The strategist. The one who prepares. Because once I had direct proof of Olivia's affair, my instinct wasn't to scream or explode. It was to protect myself. Quietly. Thoroughly. Without tipping her off. Because this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about control. I wasn't going to let her rewrite the story. I wasn't going to hand her the narrative of confused wife caught in a moment. No. If this was going to end, it would end on facts. On structure. On evidence. So I started building my wall. Brick by brick. The first thing I did was create a timeline. Not a rough sketch in a notebook. A precise minute-by-minute log of her movements on every day that stood out. I cross-referenced tracker pings with phone data, ATM withdrawals, parking garage logs, and access swipe-ins from our building. I logged every late-night workout, every client dinner, every afternoon she said she was running errands. And I matched them, meticulously, against Logan's photos, her GPS trails, and receipts I'd quietly pulled from her bag and photographed when she wasn't looking. Pattern emerged. Tuesday afternoons, Thursday evenings, the occasional Friday lunch. Always around the same windows. Always ending at the same location. Mariner Quay Lofts. Room 412. I pulled up our toll road account, the one we used for our transponder. Sure enough, there were charges for exits near the harbor at times that directly contradicted where she said she was. And since she'd been using my SUV off and on, I pulled the records from that too. Same pattern. Next, I went to the building manager in our condo, not to make a scene, but to quietly ask for a printout of the garage entry logs tied to our key fobs. I told him I was auditing a lost item report. He didn't ask questions. I got the data. Sure enough, on days she said she was still at the office. Her car had returned to our garage twice. Once in the late afternoon. Then again after dark. A round trip. A lie. I didn't just document this. I graphed it. Visuals. Spreadsheets. Timestamps. It became a digital case file. Not a wee *p*n. Not revenge, but clarity. Proof. Next came the finances. I opened a new personal bank account. Quietly. Under a separate email address. I transferred a portion of my paycheck directly into it. Not a huge amount, but enough to establish independence. I froze the joint credit card limit to prevent any large, impulsive charges. I left her name on the account, of course I didn't want to raise flags. But I knew where every dollar was going now. I also checked the auto deposit settings on her end. She hadn't made any changes. Not yet. I didn't touch her income. I had no interest in sabotaging her. But I did pull records of large ATM withdrawals she'd been making in cash. Always in increments of $100 or more. She was funding someone off the grid. Possibly him. I took *TS of every withdrawal, timestamped them, and matched them against the GPS data. More patterns. Then I did something that felt both paranoid and necessary. I backed up everything. 2 encrypted cloud drives, one tied to a secure Proton mail, the other to an external drive stored in a safe deposit box I opened at a local bank under my name only. I also printed hard copies of key evidence, not everything, just the essentials. I put them in a slim red folder and stored it in the back of my office drawer at work. At that point, the case wasn't just built, it was fireproof. If she tried to lie, I had facts. If she tried to spin it, I had visuals. If she tried to drag me through court, I had protection. All the while, I said nothing. That was the hardest part. I'd sit across from her at dinner while she scrolled through her phone and told me how crazy her trainer's new program was. I'd hear her on fake work calls, repeating phrases like client onboarding and quarterly strategy, all while I knew where she really was. Once, while folding laundry, she brought up the idea of going on a couple's retreat. She said it might be a good reset. I smiled and said it sounded interesting. She looked so normal, so calm. She had no idea. And that's when I realized how far gone we really were. Because she was no longer living a double life out of guilt. She was comfortable in it. And me? I was done playing her version of this story. Next came asset control. I wasn't worried about being taken for everything. We didn't have kids, and most of our big purchases were already split fairly. But I wasn't about to be blindsided. So I did what my lawyer friend once told me to do in a situation like this. Track, freeze, and separate. I listed all joint accounts and removed shared autopay permissions. I changed my emergency contacts at work. I removed her as an authorized user on my HSA. I checked the lease and verified that I could legally break or transfer it under a divorce provision. I created a detailed inventory of our property, car titles, electronics, furniture, everything down to the mattress and the silverware. I wasn't preparing for war. I was preparing for clarity. I wanted clean lines. No drama. No yelling matches. No late-night sobbing on the floor. Just facts. A clean cut. There was a moment, around midnight one night, when I stood in the doorway to our bedroom just watching her sleep. She looked peaceful. Innocent, even. Like the woman I used to know. The woman I fell in love with. And for a second I felt that familiar ache. That voice that says, maybe you're wrong. Maybe there's still a way back. But it was drowned out by another voice, colder. Calmer. You already tried saving it. She buried it while you weren't looking. So I turned away and went back to the office, opened my laptop and kept building the case. Brick by brick. Bite by bite. Because the next step wasn't confrontation. It was preparation. And when the time came, I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to lay everything out in plain view, calm, complete, undeniable, and walk away with everything in order. The next phase came down to one question. Who was he? The man from the photos, tall, dark-haired, effortlessly confident, had shown up more than once in Logan's surveillance captures. Always with Olivia. Always at the same location. They weren't hiding. Not in a dramatic, shady way. They were just operating in a different world. A parallel one. One she didn't think I could see. But now that I had the evidence, I wanted the full story. It wasn't just about catching them. It was about understanding the architecture of the lie. So I zoomed in on the photos Logan had taken, clean, high-resolution images of the man's face, posture, vehicle. In one, his car was clearly visible. Black BMW 3 Series, personalized license plate partially obscured, but enough to catch a few letters. I started with that. Within an hour of slow, patient online searching, a few public vehicle lookups, a couple of Reddit threads on vanity plates, I had it. Ian Fisher. Once I had the name, everything else unfolded fast. LinkedIn, company bio, press mentions, social media. It was like peeling back layers of paint. Each one revealing something she never told me. Ian Fisher, lead strategist at North Beacon Creative, a boutique marketing and design firm based in the same downtown district Olivia worked in. His name was listed in multiple posts on her company's blog. They had collaborated on several campaigns. Photos of them standing side by side during a panel last fall. His hand lightly on her back in one. A comment thread joking about their crazy creative chemistry. I stared at the screen, hand steady, pulse low. This wasn't some random stranger. This was a colleague. A work overlap. Which meant something significant. A professional conflict of interest. And now I wasn't just holding personal betrayal. I was holding leverage. Because her company had a strict policy, I remembered it from the HR handbook we skimmed together when she first got promoted, about disclosure of romantic relationships within reporting lines or joint project assignments. It was spelled out explicitly. All personal relationships that intersect with business projects must be declared to HR for review and role reassignment if necessary. She hadn't disclosed anything. And Ian? He wasn't just a random fling. He was part of her workflow. That meant I wasn't just preparing for a divorce. I was preparing a legal case with corporate implications. The next step was delicate. I needed counsel. Quiet, experienced, with zero tolerance for games. That's when I found Anna Reed, a divorce attorney known in our county for discretion and precision. She wasn't cheap, but she had the kind of reviews that didn't just talk about courtroom wins. They talked about strategy, containment, damage control. Exactly what I needed. I met her the following Monday in a discreet office park on the north side. Mid-morning. No receptionist, no waiting room drama. Just a frosted glass door and a firm handshake. "Walk me through it," she said. "No judgment. Just focus." I handed her the timeline first. Then the USB. She plugged it in, reviewed a few of the key files, the photos, the tracker data, the receipts, the building logs. She took her time, asked a few clarifying questions. Then she leaned back in her chair and looked me straight in the eye. "You have enough here to file on grounds of adultery. Cleanly. Convincingly. If we time this right, we can control the optics, financial division, and potential corporate fallout. What's your goal?" I thought about it for a second, then said, "Control. Clarity. I don't want drama. I want closure. Quiet. Structured." She nodded. "Then you came to the right place." Anna began drafting a petition immediately, one that included documentation of infidelity, misrepresentation in joint asset reporting, and a contingency clause addressing professional misconduct linked to her work relationship with Ian. The angle wasn't just personal anymore. It was ethical. Anna explained that if Olivia had failed to disclose the romantic involvement, especially while collaborating with Ian on projects that involved budgetary approvals or client communications, it created a vulnerability for both her firm and Ian's. "I don't recommend broadcasting it," she said, tapping her pen on the desk. "But if we include it discreetly in the legal documentation, we signal that this isn't just about broken vows. It's about credibility, trust, liability." I asked her if Olivia could retaliate, drag things out, or try to flip the script. Anna smirked. "She can try, but you have timestamps, logs, imagery, and money trails. You've documented everything in real time, and your behavior has remained calm and cooperative. That plays well in court. Judges don't like chaos. They like records." She paused, then added, "Your control of the narrative matters more than your pain. Remember that." That same week, I went a step further. There was still one blind spot in my file: how she consistently accessed the terrace suite at Mariner Quay Lofts. The keycard I found had today's date, but they'd clearly been there more than once. That meant either someone was leaving cards under their name, or they had help. So I made a call. A friend of mine from college, Nate, used to work as a concierge supervisor at a high-end residence.